Hi, I'm Dr. Christian Ramner, the founder and director here at Thrive Chiropractic. We'd like to share with you some of the things we've learned, having seen over 50,000 patient visits now in this practice. I've been in this industry now for over 14 years. And what we'd like to share with you are, we've noticed there are some things that make people really well. There are some things that stop people from being as well as they could, and there are some things that make people worse. So what we want to share with you is obviously what we've learned about the people who've become really super well. And there's a few main concepts we want to get across to you in this video, mainly about stress, our posture and energy and how they all interrelate. So what we hear a lot from people, and maybe you've experienced this yourself, is people report to us often that they don't have enough energy, or people tend to feel like their body's tense, but they don't have enough energy. So their shoulders are tight, for example, so they're obviously using tension to make themselves tense, but they don't have enough energy, or they don't feel like they have enough time or enough resources to do what they like, or their body's somehow in pain or struggling and is preventing them from enjoying hobbies or work or time with their family and loved ones. Some of the other things we hear are people want to make more time for themselves, but they feel bad about doing it, or their kind of work-life balance is off, or maybe have you ever, snapped and feeling a bit more snappy than you'd like to, or a bit more anxious than you'd like to. These are the kind of the things that we've noticed people reporting to us before we've started working with them. My own experience that what really led me to, work this way, and I'll explain that in a bit, is that I've had, 2 slip discs or 2 herniations in my spine. I've been overweight and underconfident. I've had a speech impediment, and I've been dyslexic, which meant when I could figure out what to say, I couldn't always get it out of my mouth, and as you'll observe, I more than make up for that now. And as a result of all that, my moods dropped, my confidence dropped, and I felt like my body should be able to do better. I didn't want to have to take medication. I didn't kind of like that idea, but I believe my body should be able to heal, like it should be able to regenerate, but I wasn't experiencing that. And that led me to seek out, mentors, teachers, people who were getting extraordinary results with people who could show me, how do you work with the body? How do you work with the spinal nervous system? How do you help literally upgrade the body's ability to heal and self-regulate? So originally I trained as a chiropractor. That gave me kind of 5 years of anatomy, physiology, all the kind of traditional medical sciences. But then I really specialized in, well, how do you work with the spine and obviously your hands to help the system upgrade? So what I want to share with you now is, well, how do we produce that, and what are some of the common pitfalls and misunderstandings? So the first is stress. Now, we've all been taught that stress is bad and stress is harmful and stress kills, and all of those things are true. The problem with that is we also need it. Stress is also very helpful when we use it correctly, because stress is what woke us up in the morning. This morning, hopefully. Stress is what makes your body get injured when you go to the gym, and it's part of what helps it repair and get stronger. When we get mentally stressed, for example, like we give ourselves a time deadline, like we're about to go away on holiday, our productivity can increase before we go. When we get a letter in the post that's got red urgent writing on it, we tend to act more quickly. So stress used well can actually help bring the best out of us. Human beings respond really well to the right amount and kind of pressure. It literally helps us to grow and to have this sense of more progress. Where stress becomes more challenging is, number one, it can last way too long, and it can have all these different elements. Like when we think about being stressed, some people think about just sitting at a desk with a big pile of work and not enough time, but the stress response can be initiated if we sit too much. If you have a car accident, you get knocked from behind, or trips, falls, knocks or bangs, that time you fell out of a tree when you're 8 years old, all of that can kind of be physically stressful. We can get chemically stressed by the things we eat or drink or breathe in that were never designed to be inside us, like car fumes or too much sugar or too much caffeine. We can get emotionally stressed, and maybe you've had this experience where you snapped at someone and you knew full well it had nothing to do with them whilst you were doing it. Or you might have had a situation where there was a conflict and you felt a bit anxious or worrying about it, and then after the event you were still chewing it over, or you still felt a bit anxious. Because that just shows that our brain is out of time and space. If I'm snapping here and if I'm still worrying about that, that means my brain is here, or here it's not in the present moment. Other ways that can happen are, if we lose a loved one, or if we had stress at school, or family stress, or a more severe case of some kind of abuse. Those are all kind of emotional stresses on our nervous system. The last is what I call a social stress, and this is because we used to live much more as groups, meaning if one of us decided we're going to go this way, it's safe, we'd all follow. Nowadays, we don't live like that. So the way we experience that, you might notice, is if you're in a work meeting or in a family meeting and you have an opinion and it's not the same as everyone else's and you need to express it, that might feel very uncomfortable. That's sort of kind of what I call social stress. So we have the physical, chemical, and kind of emotional. The problem with all of those is that we experience them all the time. It's a part of human life, but our brain, depending on which scientist you believe, is about 100,000 to 2 million years old. So 100,000 years to 2 million. And our brain thinks fight or flight. The problem is, how do you fight or flight, the threat of terror on the news, or how do you fight or flight a challenging situation at work or at home, or how do you fight or flight the fact that you sat down too much? Okay? We can't. So our brain is telling us to do something that we can no longer do. And that creates a whole cascade of sensations inside us. One of the really important ones is that it can suppress our immune system and it can suppress our ability to sense what's happening. Because when the stress response happens, our brain is telling us, hey, what's around you could be life-threatening, so pay attention. So we naturally pay more attention to what's happening around us and less attention to what's going on inside us. How this shows up is, maybe you've heard this, it's what I call a tragic truth of somebody who looked well and felt well, who suddenly had a horrible diagnosis or a heart attack. So what happened there is that the stress was building up inside them, their body and health were changing, but because they were more focused on what was going on around them, they didn't notice, they didn't have time to adapt or change or seek the appropriate advice. The first thing is we have that stress response. A little bit of it is essential, too much of it is really harmful, and most of us are getting too much of it. How we notice that happening is that it changes our posture, because the fight or flight response makes our body get ready to fight or flight. So the head comes forward, I protect my vital organs, and I'm ready to fight, or I'm more clued into what's going on around me. So for example, if a tiger were to attack me, heaven forbid, and scratch my neck, now is not the time to stop and cry. It's the time to run to safety. So I might not even feel that. My body might adapt and I might not even notice. There are 5 main ways our posture adapts, and I'm going to exaggerate a little bit here just for humour. So the first is that the upper neck can tip up, and this, when our upper neck tips, doesn't matter who you are or where you're from, this individual will feel a bit more anxious, and they'll feel like there's not enough time, or they're always early, or they're always late, or they're always kind of worried about time. This person might feel a bit more worried and anxious, or a bit more time pressured. The next one is the lower neck. It might bend forward, and this person feels more grumpy or more angry and more frustrated. And perhaps you know people like this who are, doesn't matter what happens, they always seem to react that way. Or when something happens that, kind of, you would say kind of arbitrarily, their response is like this, so that's the low neck. And if you think about action movies, often on the cover of the action movie is, I'm going to get you this kind of posture here, like that kind of thing. The third is where the neck tips, and you'll often see newsreaders like this, where the head will tip. And what this will do is it will basically cut off emotion. So the person will either talk and 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 never really make a point, or like a newsreader, today, tragically, something happened. And they just say it verbatim, but there's no emotion, there's no feeling behind what they're saying. It's just a transmission of words. And so when we tip the neck here, it can cut off the emotion. The fourth is when we can exaggerate our posture. So I think we've all had the experience, sadly, where someone's used their posture to assert power over us. And the pelvis, I'm putting my hands a bit higher up, it might be easier to see on the video here, but what people are doing here is they're making their posture larger, and they're basically saying, I am somehow more important than you because I've made my pelvis larger. I've made it larger, I'm occupying more room. Pop stars use it to their advantage by tipping it to one side, like, hey, look at me, think this of me, like this is who I am. And when people get unsure and unable to make decisions and nervous, they might cross their legs. So they actually make their pelvis smaller, they make it take up less room than it was before. And then we have a couple of combinations where the neck can go one way, I'm exaggerating, and the pelvis this way. And this is, commonly seen in teenagers, and it's that feeling of, God, has to be this way, can't be the way I want, right? And there's a sense of resignation. And adults notice that with that thought of, what's the point? And then finally, we have where the head and tailbone both come forward and the body collapses, and this is where we feel like there's not enough inside me to meet what's required. Like I don't have enough resources, I'm tired, I'm worn down, like I'm worn down by my environment. I can't meet and overcome my environment. And I mention all of those because we use posture so much when we're making first impressions, when we're meeting people. Ladies watching this, you'll know it doesn't take you very long to work out if a man is approaching you to ask for the time or if he secretly has another agenda. And likewise, men, it doesn't take us long to know if a man's approaching us, to be friendly or to fight, because there's a part of our brain called a mirror neuron, which literally mirrors what someone else is thinking and feeling in it, so that we can kind of connect with each other. And what that's basically assessing is someone's posture, because the posture basically shows us how's the internal world meeting the external world. Like what's really going on, how's someone really thinking and feeling, which is why in an interview situation, they've often made up their mind very quickly, because if I walk in like this, we're not going to trust someone like this with an important job that's time sensitive. Someone who's like this with their posture looks much more confident and much more able and much more friendly, like they're able to do more. So we've talked about the stress response, how it's an old mechanism that can change our posture. And then finally, I want to talk a bit about energy, because a lot of people feel like they don't have enough energy, or they can have enough in the morning, but it kind of breaks in the afternoon or about 3 or 4 o'clock. There is more than enough energy within and around our body. Like we're never in shortage. What I've observed, however, is, and maybe you have too, is that people often tell me, hey, I don't have enough energy, I'm tired, but their muscles are tight. So if our muscles are tense, it takes energy to produce this. And if I keep doing that, I'm going to get cramped pretty soon and I'm going to get exhausted. So if we can help the brain, so often when we're tired, it's not that we don't have enough energy, it's that it's not being used very wisely. And we've observed that people who get really well can liberate it and use it in a very efficient way. And people who don't get so well or get more sick, can't use energy very well in their body, and their physical body, their muscles and bones get tense. So I often find that when people don't have enough energy, either one of two extremes, either the body's quite tense, so they have energy but they're not using it very wisely, or the body's way too flaccid, which means their nervous system's kind of a little bit disassociated from the body and it's not getting it to fire quite as well. So our answer here at Thrive to all of those three things is, okay, we need to upgrade how the nervous system works. It's the nervous system, the brain and spinal cord, that coordinates everything I've just mentioned. It coordinates the stress response, our posture, and our energy levels. So what we focus on here at Thrive is saying, well, how do we get the nervous system to go from here to here? Like, it's obvious what being here produces, because that's what people experience. So how do we get it to go here? And the wonderful thing with the nervous system is it doesn't matter how old someone is, the nervous system, the brain, is always willing to learn. It's always able to adapt. And we've actually now been studied at about 11 different universities around the world. And the way we get the spine to upgrade has actually been studied to understand how biological systems can self-organize. It's quite intelligent, quite sophisticated stuff. But the main thing is, that's our approach. How do we upgrade the nervous system? How do we upgrade our ability to deal with stress, to improve our posture, and to improve our energy? Now, that may sound a bit far-fetched, so a lot of people wonder how we do it. Well, the first thing is we don't do any twisting or cracking, because if I twist or crack someone's spine, as powerful as that intervention can be for the right people, it means that I'm responsible for creating the change in that person's nervous system. The way we work is to take a really gentle contact and a really specific point, a bit like a pressure point, so that the brain can pay attention to the body, because the brain's controlling all of this stuff, and we can get the brain, as it's paying attention, to start making changes, which it will naturally do. And the way we do that is, once the stress response changes and the tension goes from outside to more inside, the brain can pay attention, it can start to self-reflect and start to self-organize. So that's the first thing. And interestingly enough, it needs the willingness of the participant, meaning if someone's not willing or someone's not interested, we can't kind of hypnotize them into doing it. They have to be willing. We have case studies with people who are quadriplegic, so cut off from the neck down, and their spine will actually move and undulate, and their body will learn to deal with stress more effectively. I employ someone with cerebral palsy, and we've written her up as a case study because the body, through brain injury, is contorted, and when we work with it, the brain can learn to open, and as we work with it more, it's remaining more so. So there's definitely signs that you can work gently with the spine and have it upgrade. And as long as the person is willing, and as long as there is nothing too serious going on in their spine, which obviously our examination will filter out, it's absolutely possible for the nervous system to upgrade regardless of someone's age. So a few things I'd like you to do once we're done, a few things I'd like you to practice are, you can simply, just to give you some tools, if you want to calm your nervous system down at any time, you can simply breathe in your nose and out of your mouth. If you want to build your nervous system up, you can breathe in your nose and out of your mouth, out of your nose, so in the nose, out the nose. And if you want to feel your nervous system expand, you can breathe in the mouth, out the nose. There are a few simple things you can use before we get a chance to meet to help your nervous system change at will. Finally, I really hope we get the chance to meet you. Just please know that it is possible, in my experience with over 50,000 patient visits, for people of any age, any race, to change and upgrade and improve their health. We've seen people as old as 96 have their posture, their energy and their health improve. So my experience in my own practice shows me that that's possible for people. Obviously we don't know about you until we've had a chance to meet you, so we'd love to have that chance. Since you've watched this video, just give us a call or send us an email. We'd love to set you up with an appointment in the practice. Until I get the chance to meet you, I wish you all the best and I hope to see you soon. Bye for now.